Hey friends, I don't think I've ever had a more requested topic on this channel than Swordland Showdown. And I have a bit of a hot take I've been itching to share with you all. Meanwhile, I've been plagued by some crazy matchups my last 3 times that didn't even allow me to record the right footage for this guide. Frustrating. So it was only with your help as a community that I was able to assemble the footage to put this whole thing together. So I owe some very special thanks to a few people. Second Express from Kingdom 127 for answering the call in my post and sharing his full gameplay footage. Upward Dragon from Kingdom 268 for attempting to capture the footage, but who, unfortunately, was victim of similar matchmaking issues as me. And Just 2 Magic from Kingdom 356 for giving feedback on the script and tactics shared here. Also, make sure you share this video with your alliance so you are all on the same page regarding how to succeed in this event. Now I'm going to break this video up into a few sections to make sure everything is easier to digest. First, we'll discuss some fundamental mechanics of the event, where I propose some unusual framing to set the context for the strategies to come. Second, we'll talk about ways to influence the outcome during preparation for the event. And finally, we'll discuss strategies to win the actual battle, as well as ensure you hit the maximum personal reward milestones. So first, let's talk about the fundamentals. This is a bit of a controversial take, but your main goal should not be to simply win Swordland Showdown. Your main goal should be to maximize your reward outcomes, and winning the match is only one of 2 levers to do this. And if you tunnel vision on winning the match, you risk walking away worse off as far as rewards go. You see, in Swordland Showdown, the best reward outcomes are a result of 2 dimensions. If your alliance wins, then your rewards come from the winner's bracket. And if your alliance loses, then your rewards come from the loser's bracket. This is governed by which alliance earns the most alliance relic points, and that is the sole determinant of it. It doesn't matter for how long you capture which specific buildings, it's only about relic points. Then, there is your individual place within the bracket giving you different tiers of rewards. And this is based on your personal relic points, which is the sole determinant of this outcome. I start with these simple facts both because there is some confusion around this and because it sets the stage for all strategy discussion that's about to follow. And you also generate these personal relic points at a different rate and sometimes even with different activities than you generate alliance relic points. And this fact means that sometimes maximizing your individual score may sometimes be contrary to scoring the most alliance points. So we need to thoughtfully consider the strategic options to come in this light. And as you can see from the rewards preview, it's actually better to be in the top tier of the losing team than it is to be in the bottom 2 tiers of the winning bracket. And if you are just reinforcing outposts to help your team win and not knowing how to score personal relic points to supplement this, this could be a very likely outcome for you. But this all begs the question, how exactly do we get these alliance and personal relic points? Well, there are 4 activities that give points. The first way is to capture or hold the various outpost buildings. The first alliance to control each building in the match gets an immediate bonus of both personal and alliance relic points, while being part of the occupying garrison earns you additional points over time. It's worth noting that in each case, the amount of personal relic points you get is only half of the alliance relic points. You will also notice that each building has a different amount of points provided, with the Sword Shrine and the 2 Sanctums providing the most. Meanwhile, there are other building types, like the Hall of Reformation, Mercenary Camp, Royal Stables, and Bell Tower, which give you special abilities but have far lower points for control and occupation. And we'll go into those ability details later. But already, you can start to see how hard it is to get your 180,000 personal relic points solely from building occupation. Let's imagine for a moment that you had 6 marches occupying the most point-friendly buildings, which are the Sword Shrine, both Sanctums, and 3 of the 4 Abbeys. In this best-case scenario, that's only 3,000 points per minute if you add all of this occupation income together. And if you held these buildings for the entire 55 minutes of battle, which, by the way, is actually impossible because there's troop travel time, capture time, and the Sword Shrine isn't even capturable until 10 minutes into the match. But for ease of math, let's just say you somehow did, that's still only 165,000 points. Still far short of the 180,000 you need to actually get the top tier rewards. And in this perfect scenario, it means you have no additional marches for other point obtaining activities. So you're sort of just camping out on these buildings and being at the mercy of if the other team decides to attack you or not and contribute some personal points. So hopefully this helps illustrate my point that building occupation is not alone sufficient to maximize your rewards in this event. So what else can supplement? Another way to get both alliance and personal relic points is to capture arsenal supplies. These are the loot crates that appear whenever the attacking alliance seizes control of a building from the defending alliance. They will scatter all around the building and become lootable by the first player to send a march toward them. And, unlike in Eternity's Reach, this requires one of your regular march slots, but you can send multiple marches to multiple loot crates at once. The exact amount of each individual loot crate is randomized, but the total points of all the loot crates grows as the number in the bubble above the building garrison also grows. The point total gathered from arsenal supplies are added to both alliance and personal relic points. Next we have undersellers. These appear later in the match in unmarked locations around the map, but they're roughly equidistant from the sword shrine. Once you know where to look for them, they become much easier to spot. And you can send a march of troops to gather from these like you would a resource node. Over time, troops here will accumulate both personal and alliance relic points at the same rate, but also at a slower time than other sources of points. And lastly, you can earn personal relic points, and only personal relic points, by defeating enemy troops in combat. If you are attacking, you earn 80 personal relic points per 10,000 soldier power defeated in combat. And if you're the defender, it's 40 points per 10,000 soldier power. This may not sound like much, but if you are involved in the right battles, then you can easily max out your personal relic points, especially as everyone's troops grow in power later in the game. Seriously, I've had matches where I teleported next to another player and went all out on him and got enough points for max tier within the first 2 minutes of the match. And that's a nice pressure relief to know right off the bat that no matter what, you will get a guaranteed 6,000 relic coins and 5 orange shards, no matter how the rest of the match goes. Now we'll talk more about how to balance these personal and alliance points when we get into the actual match itself, but for now, just keep in mind that you may need to pivot between point scoring methods as the battle conditions evolve. There are some other notable rules that are worth calling out. Each alliance has 2 legions to which players can be dispatched, and players can vote ahead on preferred times to help alliance leaders allocate members between each legion. Legion 1 is the battle that determines the alliance's overall tier advancement and alliance rewards. If you're a combatant in Legion 2, you will still get your personal rewards based on whether or not you win that match, but still the overall alliance rewards at the top here will be determined by Legion 1's results. Given that the overall alliance rewards aren't that different between a win and a loss for Legion 1, and that there's no increase in rewards for advancing in tier, I don't find it to be that meaningful of a distinction, unless you really want that S-tier alliance building. Another important one is that there are no troop losses in Swordland Showdown, only injuries, and your Infirmary has unlimited capacity while in this mode. And when you leave the battlefield, all of your troops are instantly healed, and more on that last bit in a moment. But one big watch out here is that you also cannot enter the battlefield while you have troops in your Infirmary. So don't be surprised at the last second when you suddenly can't join. Make sure ahead of time that your Infirmary is clear. Now with regards to healing those troops in your unlimited Infirmary, you can heal your troops using healing speed-ups, but I would actually recommend a different tactic. Buried at the bottom of the rules, you'll see that if you leave the battle, then you incur a 12-minute cooldown before you can re-enter the battle. However, I also just said that leaving the battle will instantly heal all of your troops. So if you're in a position where you have hundreds of thousands of troops in the Infirmary, it might actually be a better choice to just exit the battle and re-enter with fully healed troops than to be ineffective for the rest of the match and trying to heal. And as you'll see in some of the combat strategies we get into, this exit to heal approach can have a huge impact on how many rewards you get. Finally, another asset that many players overlook is that you get a free advanced teleporter that constantly recharges during a specified period of time during the match. You can also get rechargeable troop march speed-ups, and now with that September 2025 update, you start with 5 of them and can recharge up to a maximum of 30. so don't be afraid to rush your troops to an objective even if you are free to play. Okay, so now we get into the preparation strategies. Up front, you need to decide what type of alliance you want to be. If you're serious and competitive, then you'll probably want to set up some sort of voice chat like Discord and treat this sort of like an MMO raid with a knowledgeable raid leader trying to call the shots and bring order. When it's a large match, it can get quite chaotic, and the battle might evolve faster than you can type in chat. It's also less likely everyone will even read the chat messages in time. If you do decide to rely on the in-game chat to communicate, at least make sure everyone in your alliance is aware ahead of time that a new tab opens up for just the active legion fighting outside of your alliance chat. Otherwise, you risk your team becoming fragmented between two chat windows. And also make sure your alliance leadership uses alliance labels to mark key objectives. Another pre-matchup tactic that might be a bit controversial is to take advantage of blind spots in the matchmaking process. Now, I'm not talking about rumors of unequipping hero gear or anything like that. I haven't actually ever seen that one work. But what I have seen firsthand is that smaller alliances can kind of sandbag the matchmaking a bit. Obviously, if you're a large alliance with a lot of people who want to participate, then you should give everyone a chance to get rewards and grow the alliance. Again, we want to maximize the total rewards coming out of this. But on some older kingdoms with a bit of attrition, well, it may very well be that an alliance that's in the top 20, which is the prerequisite to compete in Swordland, may have more spots than players. And this creates an interesting opportunity because there's no requirement that signups must be evenly distributed between the two regions. Since matchmaking seems to look at total power of all combatants, you can, for example, do a signup of about 15 people. And if you are a stronger alliance in an older kingdom, then there's a good chance that you'll get a matchup of a full 30-member legion of a newer alliance. And due to how power scaling works in this game, well, we kind of know how this battle's gonna go. You could even take it a step further and have some of these signups be farm accounts above level 16. Then you could end up with 8 to 10 players that would basically be like whales and have the same power as the rest of the enemy combined. Again, I know it's quite controversial, but I couldn't make a guide that covers Swordland preparation strategies without including it. And for some smaller alliances where players are on break for holidays or something and you don't really have enough players to fill up all the spots, it might actually kind of be necessary to just be able to compete. But let's say for a moment you're doing a normal registration. One of the most important things you can do is just make sure you can actually attend. If you sign up but don't attend, then that is wasted power rating that's giving you a stronger opponent and makes your team relatively weaker in comparison. Now look, obviously sometimes life happens and this is just a game after all, but it is important to at least understand that accurately forecasting your attendance is actually the single most important thing that will help your alliance come out ahead. And lastly, outside buffs that you use like pet abilities, castle appointments, and consumables will be active during Swordland. Now, using the rechargeable pet bonuses is a no-regrets move for everyone. However, castle battle appointments should go to your strongest players to have the most impact. I would also thoughtfully consider the use of the consumable buffs. They are expensive, but at the same time, this is one of the few places in the game where they will give a good return on investment if they change the outcome of the battle. Even if you didn't have any in stock, using 2,000 gems each on squad health and lethality, for example, might get you back an extra 1,000 gems to offset, plus 5 extra orange shards, and 6,000 more relic coins, as well as many other goodies. Now be careful with this though, because if you watch my rally formation guide, linked below in the description, then you'll remember that these buffs will only impact the rally leader or your own solo marches. So again, make sure you only give the castle positions to your strongest players if possible, and your lower spending or free-to-play players may want to only actually use the free rechargeable pet buffs, since they will get less impact from the buffs overall. And now comes the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's talk about the actual Swordland battle itself. It'll be impossible for me to cover every single edge case, but I do want to share some strategies and tactics you can use for a variety of situations. To frame the discussion easier, let's first talk about 3 scenarios. Having a very favorable matchup against a weaker opponent, having an unfavorable matchup against a far stronger opponent, and having an even matchup where a sound strategy could change the battle outcome. Now, you might be thinking, why do I need a strategy if I have a favorable matchup? Well, remember, This isn't about simply winning, it's about maximizing the rewards for you, and ideally everyone in your alliance. And as I said earlier, winning is only one vector that influences your rewards. You still need to worry about personal alliance points. So if it becomes apparent that your victory is a foregone conclusion, then there are two potential issues that can prevent you from getting maximum points. One is that buildings may not really change hands that often and cause the loot crates to spawn, thus reducing your personal points. And the second is that you might not see enough combat at the buildings you are reinforcing in order to get enough personal relic points, and the enemy might stay in their safe zone so you can't attack them. To solve both of these challenges, there are a few things you can do. One is to have your alliance understand how personal scoring works, and if they reach their 180,000 points already, then they should actually back off of gathering loot crates or attacking players that came out of the safe zone to leave point scoring opportunities for other alliance members. And if the enemy is all hiding, then another tactic is to teleport near the enemy alliance's safe zone to entice them to attack you, possibly even putting individual marches into encampments to make it less scary for them. But perhaps the simplest thing to do is actually just message one or two of them and explain that you really just want to trade personal relic points so you can all get the best rewards together. This can also mean letting them capture a building or two to temporarily spawn those loot crates. It could also mean letting them know you can both attack each other and that they can just simply leave and re-enter in 12 minutes with fresh troops to do more combat. Sometimes I found that many people don't realize this and they feel like they need to hide in the safe zone to conserve their few troops left wisely. In any case, teamwork with the opponent is actually your best option here, and they'll probably appreciate the opportunity to get top rewards of the losers bracket anyway. And maybe share this video with them for next time too, okay? But what about if you're on the other end of the equation and there's no hope of winning, and the enemy doesn't want to cooperate with you? Well, this is all just a fancy way of saying that Alliance relic points no longer matter in this match. You therefore need to do all you can to get personal relic points for maximum rewards. And the worst thing you can do at this point is just sit there in the safe zone waiting for some ideal moment to make a play, no matter how comforting that might feel. Swordland Showdown is designed to reward an offensive mindset, so you should just steer into that. And in this case, I would recommend looking for an enemy somewhere on the map that you think you are stronger than, or at least roughly equivalent to. Then simply teleport next to them and immediately launch all your troops in individual marches. There's a decent chance that their troops and heroes will be out reinforcing buildings somewhere, and thus they'll have lower defenses at home anyway. But even if they didn't and you lose the matchup, you get points based on troop power that you defeat. And if you're quick enough, you can do this before they teleport away. Now what is likely to happen is that a bunch of their stronger allies will teleport in and rush to attack you. And this is okay. In fact, this means more points from you from any troops you defeat on defense. So just keep going until you burn down or your troops are all exhausted. And it's possible that this one act can give you all the points you need for the top rank in less than a minute or two if you're later in the game and have more powerful troops and larger armies. And if not, you can simply just leave the match, wait out the 12-minute cooldown, and re-enter with full troops to repeat with another attack. Now if you still think there is some very remote chance that you could pull out a win, you could try a version of this which gives you Alliance relic points as well as personal points. Instead of targeting an enemy city, look for a weakly defended outpost that might have a lot of potential for big loot crates. Then teleport right next to it and try to capture it with a solo march. And if you do capture it, then immediately send out all of your excess march slots to collect all the loot crates that spawned around you. You might be able to get most of the Alliance points picked up before the enemy even notices and arrives to try to attack you. So whatever your approach, just remember not to stay passively in your safe zone. You get lots of personal relic points for guerrilla tactics. But what do you do with an even matchup? How do you actually win the match? Well, if you watched many of my other videos, you probably know the next two words I'm going to say. Alliance coordination. That's right, having some sort of game plan that everyone is following, and ideally someone coordinating it like I mentioned earlier, will set you apart. And following that MMO raid analogy that I mentioned earlier, you can roughly carve out different roles with associated tactics for each. So let's start first with what we will call the tank role. This person's job is to hold key outposts, send reinforcements, and act as the defensive rally leader. Ideally, this is someone who has the latest generation of defense-oriented heroes built with their widgets. A strong enough player might even be able to lead the defenses of 2 or 3 locations, but they need to be careful not to spread themselves too thin. They will need to send reinforcements, which takes march slots, and also have to worry about travel time. Ideally, you have a couple tanks coordinating with each other to hold buildings nearby each other with their strongest march, and sending reinforcements to each other's holdings with weaker marches. And what buildings should they hold? Well, for prioritizing alliance points, the Sword Shrine and Sanctums would be the immediate choices. However, it's worth noting that while the Sword Shrine is worth a lot, you do not need to ever capture it to win. It generates 1,800 alliance occupation points per minute, which is about a quarter of the total 7,560 occupation points that all buildings generate. So if your entire team decides to just turtle into the Sword Shrine and give up all the other buildings, there's a decent chance that you will lose. And you will also take troop losses from the continuous stream of mercenary attacks while you hold it. In addition, some of the buildings that give fewer points actually provide great team-wide buffs that can help give you the upper hand in earning more alliance points. And if this allows you to stop your opponent from holding buildings continuously, then this could be better than holding a higher point building without that benefit. Some of the important ones are the stables, which halves the cooldown of teleport recharge for everyone. It's very valuable since you don't want to be wasting advanced teleporters unless it's an emergency. This is because every time you use one before the recharge is finished, the teleport item cost actually increases. And the bell tower is another great one to get, particularly in the earlier part of the match. This is because it reduces the occupation time to capture buildings. Remember, each first control reward is the equivalent of holding a building for 5 minutes. So if this allows your team to get those first control rewards over an opponent, then it more than makes up for the low occupation income of the bell tower itself. Now, the Hall of Reformation is also helpful because of the 15% damage increase buff and the 15% damage reduction buff that it provides to your team. This one is a bit obvious in how it gives you an advantage given all the continuous combat in Swordland Showdown, but because you can also earn personal relic points via combat very easily, it actually helps maximize your Swordland rewards whether you win or lose the match. And for this reason, I think the mercenary camp is the lowest priority. While it does send additional mercenaries to attack an enemy garrison building, you don't actually get any personal relic points for those kills. And it also just simply doesn't feel like it has that big of an impact on the match as the other bonuses. It's still useful if you can get it, of course, but it's just not a priority. And if you are playing a tank role, you will want to be careful about being in an area where your city is exposed. If you are located immediately next to a building you are holding, you will be easier to find and someone may choose to attack you instead of the well-reinforced building. And if this happens, you risk troop losses and potentially having your city burn and teleporting back to the starting area, which, by the way, will remove all of your troops from all reinforced locations. So ideally, you do want to be in the vicinity of the buildings you are protecting, but also a bit off screen from them to reduce this risk. If a couple of tanks are working in tandem, then they can locate together and reinforce each other's cities if someone teleports in to try to quickly attack you. And now let's look at another classic raid role, the DPS. And just like in an MMO game, you want your DPS player to be your absolutely best geared player. And here it is no different. This is what your absolute strongest whales should be doing. This will allow them to solo attack with the element of surprise, as opposed to needing to wait to call a rally and lose all advantage. To play this role effectively, the DPS player should look around the map for the strongest opponents of the enemy and teleport to them to launch attacks and wipe out all of their troops. The plan is to harass and disrupt the enemy player's cities at first and undercut their ability to earn Alliance relic points. And if you have a significant strength advantage, then try to maximize the value of your teleports by looking for clusters of enemy bases to multiply your disruption. Also, having an excess of troops in your town beyond your marches, whether your own troops or reinforcements, can help bait enemies who decide to try a counterattack. This role means you will likely be losing a lot of troops, another reason why you will want your whales to play this role since they have a greater supply of them. When the DPS player's troops are finally exhausted, then they have a couple of options. If they are comfortable with it, they could just use a bunch of heal speed ups to instantly heal, which is another perk of having a whale play this role. However, if your strongest players are not in whale territory or do not have the speed ups, then your DPS should simply exit the match and come back 12 minutes later with fully healed troops to do it all over again. But as you near the end of the battle timer, the DPS role should shift a little bit to start attacking buildings held by the enemy. particularly those that have been held for a long time and will generate a lot of loot crates. This is a great way to mount a come-from-behind victory if your opponent has held buildings longer than you. It also works especially well if your opponent has been holding a sword shrine for a long period of time and can flip the script on them with a giant point gain, especially after the enemy is possibly weak from all those mercenary waves. So to grab some of these buildings, it should not be solo attacks, but rather rallies, since they'll probably be better defended. And you may need 2 or 3 DPS to coordinate together and host successively timed rallies to dislodge a stronger opponent. Then you have your players ready to grab all the loot boxes that spawn from the building changing hands. And finally, we have the support role from our classic MMO trifecta. As you would expect, this role helps the other 2 roles in very specific ways, but also plays a bit of a utility role on its own. If you are playing a support role, you can expect to do any of the following: help the tanks grab their buildings and provide troop reinforcements to the garrisons, help DPS by joining their rallies in the late game to capture buildings and especially be ready to pick up those loot crates, also picking up loot crates in general throughout the match when buildings naturally change hands, as well as sending troops to mine the resources in the undercellars during the 3rd phase of the match when they spawn. It's a role that's well suited for weaker players in your alliance, where they make up for lack of strength with good judgment and scrappiness to earn alliance relic points. The main challenge of this role is that weaker players would be tempted to stay in their starting area for safety, but I think that'll make travel time to loot crates unrealistic and replenishment of reinforcements a major challenge. Therefore, my view is that you can be a more effective support player by teleporting near the cities of the players you are supporting at that moment. Now, this poses a bit of a different problem in that you'll be a juicy target, which is why I recommend you and those tanks don't park immediately near the buildings you are defending. However, what if you do get attacked? Well, there is a bit of a dance that you can play. If troops are coming for your city, and it's a way stronger opponent that can wipe out all of your troops, then, as a last-ditch effort, you can send your troops to encampments around your city. If you have no troops at home, then there are no troop losses. And don't worry, you won't lose resources or anything like that. Your city will just start burning, which starts the countdown timer to teleport you back to your safe zone. Now, naturally, if you put your troops in encampments, the enemy will target those next, but you can just bring them back home to avoid those battles. And if you can hold this cat and mouse game for a short while, eventually you'll just teleport back to safety with all of your troops and you can plan your next move. And while we're on the topic, teleporting in general will be a bit of an art for you. Since whenever you do use your teleporter, all of your troops will be recalled to your town and you'll no longer be reinforcing the outposts of the tanks that you are supporting. This means you should only try to teleport when there is a potential for high point gain, such as swooping in to scoop up a bunch of loot crates, or supporting a DPS player with a rally you otherwise couldn't make in time. And don't forget to use your troop speed-ups in case you have to cover more ground than tanks in DPS roles. Free-to-play players in this role might not be used to doing this, but you absolutely should since they recharge freely. You also should be prepared to change your objectives and who you are supporting as the battle evolves, so it's good to have a raid leader managing the swing capacity of these support players. And if you follow these roles, master the micro tactics I discussed, and stay coordinated as a team, you will have an excellent chance of coming out on top. But even if not, make sure you get your personal relic points to maximize the rewards no matter the outcome. And most importantly, have fun. This is one of the most delightfully chaotic events in Kingshot, and can be a lot of fun if you know what you're doing. So I hope this guide helps to bring you to that point. Please feel free to share any additional strategies or tactics you think I might have missed in the comments below, and don't forget to share this video with your alliance. Also, I just launched the Sloth Squad channel memberships if you want to support me in making more great Kingshot guides like the ones in my Kingshot Essentials playlist. Thanks again for watching, and happy gaming out there.